This is a 2014 Hyundai i10 petrol, which I recently bought for my daughter for her first car to learn to drive in. In this video, I'm just going to go over why I chose this car as the ideal first car for a new driver, as it may well help others who are looking to buy their first car too. So initially she was going to learn in an automatic and obviously drive an electric, but as time went on it made more sense to go down the manual route, bite the bullet, learn to drive a manual, and then switch to an electric later when she can afford it and maybe afford the more expensive insurance. And it was the insurance which has led this, and that's why we bought a Hyundai i10. I say we, actually she's paid for this herself. When looking at what car to buy for her first car, I first looked at the insurance groups and looked at what cars were Group 1 insurance. I didn't want her wasting hundreds of pounds on insurance unnecessarily, especially as insurance for 17-year-olds is just so expensive now. Plus I wanted her to start off on her own insurance from day one, so she could build up some no claims history. There are only a handful of cars which are Group 1 insurance, and then only specific trim levels and engines within those models. Next, I dismissed all cars that had timing belts, because obviously Dad would end up maintaining it. Then I narrowed it down to the base Kia Rio diesel, the Kia Picanto and the Hyundai i10, both in 1 litre petrol form. I started looking at the Kia Rio 1.1 diesel, but saw lots of examples of engine faults at around 80,000 miles. So I concentrated on the 1 litre engines, and these i10s are available with either a 3-cylinder 998cc engine, which this one is, or a 4-cylinder 1.2. But the 4-cylinder versions, even though they're not that much more powerful, they're actually Group 7, whereas this one with the 3-cylinder 1 litre is a Group 1. So all cars sort of have their common faults, and on the Hyundai i10 it's the clutch. And this did concern me a bit because I didn't want to end up replacing the clutch, because I've never actually done that job before. I once had a new Hyundai i40 Estate as a company car, and that actually had 2 clutch replacements within the first 2 years. And unfortunately the i10 seems to have similar issues, but fortunately on this one the clutch is absolutely fine. So once I'd narrowed the choice down to the i10, I looked at loads and loads of these online. I went out and viewed a couple of them privately, and I bid on a couple in auction. But then I found this one, which was in a trade auction as well. I had to bid on it blind, and it's a little gem. So this one is a 2014. It's actually 10.5 years old now. It's had no previous keepers, so one owner from new, and this has only done 28,000 miles. And it's got full service history with 10 main dealer stamps, and the last service was done at 27,500 miles. And I've also got the last 2 receipts here, and this is that service where it's had engine oil, air filter, brake fluid, and that cost £257. And then also last year there's another receipt here for investigating a squealing noise coming from the front brakes, and it had a caliper. Oh yeah, a rear caliper, so it wasn't actually the front brake. So they've changed a rear caliper, yet they've also changed both the front and rear discs and pads, and that ended up costing a whopping £1,089. And that was only done at 26,904 miles. So at that low mileage, I'm sure it didn't need all of that done. I think that was a case of him getting ripped off there. But anyway, a nice little genuine car, full service history, very low mileage, and really nice condition on the outside as well. So when buying from a trade auction, obviously you're taking a bit of a risk, and you've got to know exactly what you're buying. And this one, being over 10 years old, it didn't have a condition report. But as it was one owner, very low mileage, I thought it was worth taking a chance on, and I was right. It is absolutely mint. So obviously I checked out the history first and all the previous MOTs, but I was assuming because this was such low mileage and one owner that it was probably an old person's car, and usually with those they're bashed about a bit. Often you get parking scuffs on the corners, but we did really well here. This car is really good condition. There's no scratches, dents or marks on it, apart from a couple of marks there on the mirror. So that's obviously been hit, but it all still works fine. And there's a little bit of paint missing low down there on the bottom of the front bumper. That's obviously hit a curb. But it's all really minor. There's a few scratches on the wheel trims, but you can expect that with a 10-year-old car. And the steel wheels have started to rust a bit underneath those plastic wheel trims. They all do that on these, and also the wiper arms tend to rust on these. And that driver's one is starting to rust a bit, but I can rub that down and paint that. So yeah, we did really well with this one. It's probably the best condition 10-year-old one of these you're ever going to find. And then inside, it's in really nice condition. There's no scratches on the top of the bumper there where stuff's been loaded into the boot. There's a boot liner tray in there. That foot pump was in there already, which is why I think it was probably an elderly gentleman's car. Inside, the back looks like it's hardly been used. And then in the front, again, really nice condition. I have got to get a few stains out of the seats, but they will all come up with a wet wash. And yeah, it's fantastic. The only thing I've got to do also is get a bit of glue off there where they've clearly had a foam mount or sat nav stuck on top of the dash. But at least there's no screw holes, that is just glue. And you couldn't find a better one for a 10-year-old car. At this year, these i10s are available in 4 trim levels. You've got the basic S, you've then got the S Air, which includes air conditioning. You've then got the mid-spec SE, which this one is. And then there is a premium model. I really tried to find a premium model because those have a leather steering wheel and Bluetooth and a few other extras, but they're pretty rare with the 1 litre engine. Most people that spec the premium model would have also paid extra for the 1.2 engine. These are great little cars, easy to park even though they don't have rear parking sensors, and easy to drive, and actually they don't feel gutless. I was quite surprised. Even though this is the 3-cylinder 1 litre engine, I had to drive it 3 hours back and I was bombing along the motorway just fine. I was quite surprised. It's actually very nice to drive. But gosh, these don't half hold their value. Even though I bought this one in a trade auction, I still had to pay way over the odds. But then this one is a bit unusual because it's one owner and ridiculously low mileage for the year. But it's money well worth spent because my daughter can run this for a year or two and still sell it for at least what we paid for it, or maybe make a bit of a profit, because this will always be a ridiculously low mileage car. And I felt it was right to spend a bit more on the right car, which she's going to get back when she sells it anyway, than waste money on insurance. So hunting out the best possible grade 1 insurance car we could find was worthwhile.